Hi everyone, I am new to YouTube and would like to ask you to support me by liking and subscribing to the channel. Also write in the comments from which country you are watching me. Everyone enjoy watching. The first story, The Quest for the Lost Village. In the quiet town of Riverstone, people often spoke about the lost village hidden deep within the nearby forest. Legends said the village had disappeared hundreds of years ago, swallowed by time and nature. Some claimed it was a place of great magic, while others said it was cursed. Despite the rumors, no one had ever found it. 13-year-old Lucy loved the stories of the lost village. She dreamed of being an explorer and finding the village herself. Her best friend, Ben, was always by her side, ready to join her on any adventure. One sunny morning, Lucy found an old, crumpled map in her attic. The map was yellowed with age, and strange symbols marked a path through the forest. At the bottom, the words "The Lost Village Awaits" were written in faded ink. Ben. "You have to see this," Lucy said, running to his house. Ben studied the map, his eyes wide. "This could be real. Are we going to look for it?" Lucy nodded. "We have to. This could be our chance to solve the mystery." The next day, they packed supplies, water, snacks, a flashlight, and the map. They told their parents they were going for a hike and set off into the forest. The trees were tall and dense, their leaves forming a canopy that blocked much of the sunlight. Birds chirped, and the air smelled fresh and earthy. "The map says we need to follow the river," Lucy said, pointing to the blue line on the map. They walked along the riverbank, their excitement growing with each step. Hours passed, and the forest grew quieter. Finally, they reached a large stone bridge that looked ancient. Moss and vines covered it, and strange carvings lined its sides. "This must be the place," Ben said. "The map shows a symbol that looks like this bridge." They crossed the bridge and followed a narrow, winding path. After a while, they came to a clearing. In the center stood a tall stone pillar, covered in more carvings. At its base was a small wooden box. Lucy opened it carefully and found a note inside. The note read, "To find the village, solve the riddle. I am not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs. But I need air. I don't have a mouth, and yet I drown. What am I?" Ben scratched his head. "That's tricky. What could it be?" Lucy thought for a moment. "It's fire," she exclaimed. "Fire grows, it needs air, and water puts it out." As soon as she said the word, the ground beneath the pillar began to shake. A hidden door opened, revealing a staircase that led underground. Lucy and Ben looked at each other, their hearts racing. "Are you ready?" Lucy asked. Ben nodded. "Let's do this." They descended the staircase, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. At the bottom, they found themselves in a large underground chamber. The walls were covered in glowing crystals. And in the center of the room stood a model of a village carved from stone. Around it were shelves filled with old books, pottery, and strange artifacts. "This must be it," Lucy whispered. "The lost village." They explored the chamber, marveling at the treasures. One of the books contained drawings of the village as it had once been, with notes written in a language they didn't understand. Among the artifacts, they found a golden medallion with the same symbol as the stone bridge. "We should take this to the town historian," Ben said. "She might know what it means." Lucy agreed. They carefully took the medallion and made their way back up the stairs. As they emerged from the hidden door, the pillar shifted back into place, hiding the entrance once more. When they returned to Riverstone, they went straight to the historian, Mrs. Carter. She was an elderly woman with a love for old stories and artifacts. When she saw the medallion, her eyes lit up. "This is incredible," she said. "It's proof that the lost village was real." You two have made an amazing discovery. Lucy and Ben shared their story with Mrs. Carter, who promised to study the medallion and the map. News of their adventure spread quickly, and the whole town was buzzing with excitement. Though Lucy and Ben had found the lost village, they knew there was still more to uncover. The underground chamber had many secrets, and they couldn't wait to explore further. For now, they were happy to have solved one of Riverstone's greatest mysteries, and they knew this was only the beginning of their adventures. The end. The next story, The Mystery of Evergreen Woods. In the picturesque town of Silverwood, nestled between rolling hills and vast forests, life was quiet and predictable. However, the nearby Evergreen Woods held a secret. For decades, people whispered about strange lights that appeared at night and an ancient castle hidden deep within the trees. No one dared to explore it fully, fearing the legends of a guardian who protected its secrets. 17-year-old Emma had always been fascinated by the woods. She loved hiking there with her younger brother, Liam, who shared her adventurous spirit. While others in Silverwood avoided Evergreen Woods, Emma and Liam saw it as a place of endless wonder. One summer morning, while cleaning their grandmother's attic, they stumbled upon an old journal. The leather cover was cracked, and the pages were yellowed with age. Inside, they found sketches of the woods and notes about the Castle of Whispers. The journal belonged to their great-grandfather, who had been an explorer. "Look at this," Emma said, showing Liam a detailed map tucked between the pages. It showed a path through the woods leading to a marked spot labeled the heart of the forest. "Do you think the castle is real?" Liam asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "There's only one way to find out," Emma replied with a grin. "We'll follow the map." The journey begins. The next morning, they packed their backpacks with water, snacks, a compass, and the journal. Telling their parents they were going for a hike, they set off toward Evergreen Woods. The trees were tall and ancient, their thick branches forming a canopy that blocked most of the sunlight. The air was cool and filled with the scent of pine. "Stay close," Emma said as they entered the forest. She studied the map, trying to match the landmarks to their surroundings. They walked for hours, crossing streams and climbing over fallen logs. At midday, they reached a clearing with a large, moss-covered stone. Carved into it were strange symbols. "These are just like the ones in the journal," Liam said, running his fingers over the carvings. Emma flipped through the journal until she found a page explaining the symbols. "It's a clue," she said. "We need to head east from here." They continued their journey, following the map and solving riddles written in the journal. Each clue brought them closer to the castle. As the sun began to set, they reached a dense thicket. Hidden among the trees was an old, iron gate covered in ivy. "This must be it," Emma whispered. They pushed the gate open, its rusty hinges groaning. Beyond it lay a cobblestone path leading to a towering castle. Its stone walls were covered in vines, and the windows glowed faintly with an eerie light. The guardians' challenge. As they approached the castle, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was an old man with a long, silver beard and piercing blue eyes. He wore a robe adorned with stars and carried a wooden staff. "Who dares enter the Castle of Whispers?" he asked, his voice echoing. Emma and Liam hesitated, but Emma stepped forward. "We mean no harm. We found a map and followed it here. We want to uncover the truth about this place." The man studied them for a moment. "To enter, you must prove your worth. Answer this riddle. I am always running, but I never move." "What am I?" Liam thought for a moment. "A river," he exclaimed. The guardian smiled. "You are correct. You may enter. But remember, the castle reveals its secrets only to those who are brave and kind." He stepped aside, and the massive wooden doors of the castle creaked open. Emma and Liam entered cautiously, their footsteps echoing on the stone floor. Inside, the castle was breathtaking. Chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, and tapestries depicting forest scenes adorned the walls. In the center of the main hall stood a pedestal with an ornate chest. Emma opened it carefully, revealing a glowing crystal. The light it emitted was warm and soothing. "This must be the heart of the forest," Emma said. The journal had mentioned it as the source of the forest's magic. Suddenly, the guardian appeared behind them. "You have found the heart," he said. "It is a gift to those who protect nature. Take it, and use its power wisely." Emma and Liam exchanged a look. "We will," Emma promised. The return home, as they left the castle, the guardian waved his staff, and the path through the forest became clear. They returned home, carrying the crystal carefully. Back in Silverwood, they shared their story with their grandmother, who was thrilled to hear they had uncovered their great-grandfather's mystery. The heart of the forest became a symbol of hope and inspiration in the town. Emma and Liam often returned to the woods, not just to explore, but to protect its beauty. They knew the forest held many more secrets, and they were ready for whatever adventures lay ahead, and so the legend of Evergreen Woods lived on, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of courage, discovery, and the bond between siblings who dared to follow a map into the unknown. The end. The next story, The Lighthouse Keeper's Secret. On a rocky island not far from the fishing village of Bluehaven stood an old lighthouse. It had guided sailors for over a century, its light cutting through the darkest nights and fiercest storms. The people of Bluehaven respected the lighthouse and the keepers who cared for it, but they also spoke of a mystery. Some claimed the lighthouse held a treasure, while others whispered about a hidden room no one had ever found. 12-year-old Mia often visited the lighthouse with her brother Jack. Their uncle, Edward, was the lighthouse keeper, and he always welcomed them with stories of the sea. Mia and Jack loved exploring the tower, climbing its spiral staircase, and watching the waves crash against the rocks below. One rainy afternoon, while visiting the lighthouse, Mia noticed something unusual. In Uncle Edward's study, a bookshelf seemed slightly out of place. She leaned closer and saw scratches on the floor, as if the shelf had been moved many times. "Jack, come here," Mia whispered. "I think there's something behind this shelf." Jack joined her and gave the shelf a push. To their amazement, it swung open like a door, revealing a narrow passageway. "Whoa," Jack said, his eyes wide. "Do you think Uncle Edward knows about this?" Mia nodded. "He must. But why didn't he tell us?" With their hearts pounding, they stepped into the passageway. It led to a small, dimly lit room. Inside, they found an old wooden chest covered in dust. Carved into the lid were the words, "To the Keeper of the Light, the Hidden Journal." Mia and Jack opened the chest carefully. Inside, they found a leather-bound journal, a brass key, and a rolled-up map. The journal's pages were filled with drawings of ships, islands, and mysterious symbols. In one entry, they read, "The light not only guides sailors, but protects the great secret of the sea. The key unlocks the hidden chamber, where the treasure awaits." "The treasure of the sea?" Jack whispered. "Do you think it's gold or jewels?" "I don't know," Mia said, "but I think we need to find that hidden chamber." They unrolled the map and saw it was a diagram of the lighthouse. A small X marked a spot near the base of the tower. "Let's go," Mia said, her excitement growing. They sneaked past Uncle Edward, who was busy polishing the giant lamp at the top of the tower, and made their way to the base of the lighthouse. There, they found an old door, half hidden behind a pile of fishing nets. The brass key fit perfectly into the lock. The guardian's tale, the door creaked open, revealing a staircase that spiraled downward. They followed it, the air growing cooler with each step. At the bottom, they entered a cavern filled with shimmering blue light. In the center of the cavern was a pool of water that glowed softly, as if lit from within. On a pedestal beside the pool was a crystal shaped like a star. Before they could approach, a figure appeared, a man dressed in old-fashioned sailor's clothes, his face kind but stern. "Who comes to the keeper's chamber?" he asked. Mia and Jack froze. "We're Mia and Jack," Mia said. "Our uncle is the lighthouse keeper. We found the journal and the map." The man nodded. "You are brave to come this far. The treasure of the sea is not gold or jewels, but the star crystal. It holds the power to calm storms and guide lost ships. Only those with pure intentions may take it." "We don't want it for ourselves," Mia said. "We just want to understand its secret." The man smiled. "Then you are worthy. But remember, the crystal's power must always be used to help others." He stepped aside, and Mia carefully picked up the crystal. It felt warm in her hands, and as she held it, the cavern seemed to glow brighter, a legacy of light. When they returned to the study, Uncle Edward was waiting for them. His expression was serious, but his eyes twinkled with pride. "So, you found the secret," he said. "Our family has been the keepers of the star crystal for generations. It's our duty to protect it and use its power only when it's truly needed." Mia and Jack promised to keep the secret safe. From that day on, they felt a deeper connection to the lighthouse and their family's legacy. They often helped Uncle Edward with his work, knowing that the light they tended was more than just a beacon for sailors. It was a symbol of hope and protection. And though the people of Blue Haven still whispered about the lighthouse's mysteries, Mia and Jack smiled, knowing they had become part of its story. The end. The next story, The Enigma of Moonlit Valley. Moonlit Valley was a place of beauty and mystery. Nestled between towering mountains and endless fields of wildflowers, it was home to a small, quiet village. The valley was named for the way its streams and lakes sparkled under the moonlight, as if the moon itself had sprinkled silver across the land. But Moonlit Valley also had a legend. Every century, on the first night of the harvest moon, a silver wolf was said to appear. The wolf was no ordinary animal, it was a guardian of an ancient relic hidden in the valley. The relic, called the Moonstone, was said to hold immense power, capable of bringing either prosperity or destruction. 14-year-old Clara had grown up hearing the legend from her grandfather, who loved to tell stories by the fireplace. "The Moonstone chooses its keeper," he would say. "Someone brave and kind, with a heart as pure as the moon's light." Clara loved her grandfather's stories, but she didn't believe them. Legends were just that, stories to entertain and pass the time. Or so she thought, until the night everything changed. The call of the wolf. It was the eve of the harvest moon, and the village was alive with celebration. Lanterns hung from trees, children ran through the fields, and the scent of fresh-baked pies filled the air. Clara and her best friend, Finn, sat by the river, watching the moon rise. "Do you think the silver wolf is real?" Finn asked, skipping a stone across the water. "No way," Clara said. "It's just a story. Besides, if there were a magical relic in the valley, someone would have found it by now." But as the moon reached its peak, a distant howl broke the silence. It was deep and haunting, echoing through the valley. Clara and Finn froze. "Did you hear that?" Finn whispered. Clara nodded, her heart racing. "It's probably just a regular wolf." But deep down, she wasn't so sure. Something about the howl felt different, almost otherworldly. A mysterious guide, unable to shake the sound, Clara decided to investigate. She grabbed a lantern and told Finn, "Let's follow it. If we find nothing, we'll just come back." Finn hesitated but eventually agreed. The two of them set off into the woods, the moonlight guiding their way. The forest was quiet except for the crunch of leaves under their feet, after an hour of searching, they came to a clearing. There, standing under the moonlight, was the silver wolf. Its fur glowed like molten silver, and its eyes were the color of the sky at dusk. Clara and Finn froze. The wolf stared at them, then turned and began walking away. "I think it wants us to follow," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or it's leading us into a trap," Finn replied, but he followed anyway. The wolf led them deeper into the forest, to a place Clara had never seen before. A stone archway covered in ivy marked the entrance to a hidden path. Beyond it, they found an ancient temple, half buried in earth and roots, the Temple of the Moonstone. The wolf stopped at the temple's entrance and howled again before disappearing into the shadows. "Now what?" Finn asked, looking nervous. "We go inside," Clara said, holding up her lantern. The temple was dark and cold, its walls covered in carvings of wolves, moons, and stars. In the center of the main chamber stood a pedestal. Resting on it was a large, glowing stone, the Moonstone. "It's real," Finn whispered. The stories were true. As they approached the Moonstone, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Who dares disturb the relic of Moonlit Valley?" Clara and Finn spun around to see a figure emerge from the shadows. It was an old woman, her eyes sharp and her presence commanding. "We didn't mean to disturb anything," Clara said quickly. "We just followed the wolf." The woman studied them for a moment. "The silver wolf is the guardian of the Moonstone. It led you here for a reason. But before you can touch the stone, you must prove your worth." The trials of the Moonstone. The woman waved her hand, and the chamber transformed. The walls seemed to stretch endlessly, and the air filled with a strange, shimmering light. "Your first trial is the trial of courage," the woman said. "Face your fears." Clara and Finn suddenly found themselves in a dark forest. Shadows moved around them, and eerie whispers filled the air. Clara's hands trembled, but she remembered her grandfather's words. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." "Stay close to me," she told Finn. Together, they pushed through the forest, ignoring the whispers and shadows. When they reached the edge, the scene changed again. "Your second trial is the trial of kindness," the woman said. This time, they were in a small village. The villagers were arguing over how to divide their food. Clara and Finn worked together, listening to each person's concerns and finding a fair solution. The villagers thanked them, and the scene changed once more. "Your final trial is the trial of wisdom," the woman said. They stood before a puzzle, a large mosaic with pieces scattered across the floor. Clara studied the pattern, realizing it was meant to depict the phases of the moon. She and Finn worked quickly, piecing it together. As the final piece clicked into place, the chamber returned to normal. "The new guardians," the woman smiled. "You have proven yourselves worthy." She gestured to the Moonstone. "Clara, the wolf has chosen you as its keeper. The Moonstone's power is now yours to protect." Clara hesitated, then reached out and touched the stone. Warmth spread through her. And for a moment, she felt connected to everything: the moon, the stars, the earth, and the sky. The old woman nodded. "Remember, the Moonstone's power is a gift. Use it wisely, and only for good." With that, the woman and the temple began to fade. Clara and Finn found themselves back in the clearing, the silver wolf standing before them. It howled once more before disappearing into the forest. A new legend begins. Clara and Finn returned to the village, where they shared their adventure with Clara's grandfather. He smiled proudly. The Moonstone couldn't have chosen better guardians. From that night on, Clara felt a deep responsibility to Moonlit Valley. She and Finn often visited the hidden temple, ensuring the Moonstone remained safe. They also found that the wolf returned on nights when the valley needed guidance or protection. As years passed, a new legend grew in Moonlit Valley, the tale of Clara, Finn, and the Silver Wolf, who safeguarded the valley's greatest treasure. And though the moonstone's power was rarely used, its light continued to shine, a beacon of hope and harmony for all who called the valley home. The end. The next story, The Lost Treasure of Coral Cove. Coral Cove was a small fishing village by the sea. The water was bright blue, and colorful coral reefs surrounded the coast. People in the village lived simple lives, catching fish, repairing boats, and telling stories. One story was told more than any other, the story of the lost treasure of Captain Blackbeard. Long ago, the pirate Captain Blackbeard sailed the seas with his ship, the Storm Rider. He was feared by sailors everywhere, but one day, his ship was caught in a terrible storm near Coral Cove. The ship sank, and Blackbeard's treasure was lost under the waves. People in the village believed the treasure was hidden in an underwater cave. But no one had ever found it. 12-year-old Ellie loved the story of Captain Blackbeard. She dreamed of finding the treasure one day, even though her older brother, Leo, always laughed at her. "Treasure hunting is for pirates, not kids," Leo said. But Ellie didn't listen. A mysterious map. One sunny afternoon, Ellie went to the beach to collect shells. While digging in the sand, she found something strange, a piece of old parchment. It was torn and faded, but Ellie could see lines and drawings. It was a map. She ran home to show Leo. "Look. I think it's a treasure map." Leo frowned. "It's probably just an old piece of paper." "No, look at this." Ellie pointed to an X on the map. "It says, Cave of Tides. That must be where Blackbeard's treasure is." Leo sighed. "Even if it is real, how will we find it? We can't hold our breath underwater like fish." Ellie grinned. "We don't have to. Mr. Jenkins has an old rowboat. Let's borrow it and follow the map." After some arguing, Leo finally agreed. The next morning, they packed a bag with snacks, a flashlight, and the map. Then they borrowed the rowboat and set out to sea. Following the map, the water was calm, and the sun shone brightly as Ellie and Leo rowed past the coral reefs. Ellie studied the map carefully. "It says we need to pass 3 big rocks that look like a triangle. There," Leo said, pointing to a group of rocks sticking out of the water. They rowed past the rocks and followed the map to a small island. On the island's shore, they found a narrow opening in the rocks. "This must be the Cave of Tides," Ellie said. They tied the boat to a tree and climbed into the cave. It was dark and damp, and the sound of dripping water echoed around them. Ellie turned on the flashlight and held it up. The secret passage. Inside the cave, they found strange carvings on the walls, pictures of ships, waves, and a treasure chest. Ellie ran her fingers over the carvings. "Look. This must be the right place." The map showed an arrow pointing deeper into the cave. They followed it until they reached a pool of water. On the other side of the pool was a tunnel. But it was too far to walk. Leo frowned. "Now what? We can't swim across." Ellie looked around and saw a wooden plank floating nearby. "We can use this to cross," she said. They carefully balanced on the plank and made their way across the pool. The tunnel led to a large chamber with a stone pedestal in the center. On the pedestal was an old chest. The treasure. Ellie and Leo ran to the chest. It was locked, but the lock was rusty. Leo grabbed a rock and smashed it open. Inside, they found gold coins, jewels, and a small book. "Wow," Leo whispered. "It's real." Ellie picked up the book and opened it. The pages were full of drawings and notes in Captain Blackbeard's handwriting. "This must be his journal," Ellie said. They packed the treasure and the journal into their bag and made their way back to the boat. As they rowed back to Coral Cove, the sun was setting, and the water sparkled like gold, a new adventure. When they returned to the village, they showed the treasure to their parents. Everyone in Coral Cove was amazed. The village elder, Mrs. Green, read through Blackbeard's journal. "This is incredible," she said. Blackbeard wrote about many more hidden treasures. He wanted someone brave and clever to find them. Ellie's eyes lit up. "Does that mean there are more maps?" Mrs. Green nodded. "Perhaps. But the journal will help you search." From that day on, Ellie and Leo became the treasure hunters of Coral Cove. They explored the sea, following clues from Blackbeard's journal, and found more hidden wonders. The legend of Captain Blackbeard's treasure lived on, thanks to the courage and determination of two siblings who refused to give up on their dreams. The end. The next story, The Clock Tower Secret. In the small town of Meadowbrook, the clock tower was the tallest and oldest building. Its golden hands ticked steadily, keeping perfect time for over 200 years. The townspeople loved the clock tower, but they also believed it had a mystery. Some said the clockmaker, who built it long ago, had hidden something special inside. 12-year-old Sophie and her best friend, Max, loved mysteries. They often spent afternoons exploring the town, imagining themselves as detectives. But the clock tower was their favorite spot. "Do you think the stories are true?" Sophie asked one summer afternoon as they sat on the grass, staring up at the tower. Max shrugged. "Maybe. My dad says there's a hidden room inside, but no one knows how to get in." Sophie grinned. "Then we'll be the first to find it." A strange clue. The next day, Sophie and Max decided to investigate. They packed snacks, a flashlight, and Max's notebook for taking clues. When they reached the clock tower, they found the caretaker, Mr. Barnaby, sweeping the steps. "Good afternoon," Sophie said. "Can we look around the tower? We love history." Mr. Barnaby chuckled. "History, huh? All right, but don't touch anything. This tower is very old." Inside, the tower smelled of wood and metal. The walls were lined with gears and pipes. They climbed the spiral staircase to the top, where the massive clock face shone in the sunlight. Max noticed a small, dusty plaque near the gears. "Hey, look at this," he said. The plaque had an engraving, "Time reveals all." "What do you think it means?" Sophie asked. Max wrote it in his notebook. "It sounds like a clue. Maybe we should check the rest of the tower." The hidden door. As they explored, Sophie noticed a faint crack in the wooden wall near the staircase. "Max, over here," she whispered. They pushed on the wall, and it moved slightly. Behind it was a narrow door with a strange keyhole shaped like a star. "Where do we find a key like that?" Max wondered aloud. Sophie thought for a moment. "Let's check the library. Maybe there's something about the clockmaker." At the library, they found a book about Meadowbrook's history. Inside was a chapter about the clock tower and its builder, Mr. Elias Grayson. The book mentioned a star-shaped key that Grayson had kept on a chain around his neck. But after his death, the key was never found. Max sighed. "Great. It could be anywhere." "Wait," Sophie said, pointing to a picture of Grayson in front of his workshop. "That's the old shed near the park. Maybe the key is still there." The workshop searched. The shed was locked, but Sophie found a loose board they could crawl through. Inside, the air was dusty, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Old tools and papers were scattered everywhere. They searched for what felt like hours. Finally, Max opened a small wooden box. Inside was a rusty, star-shaped key. "We found it," Max said, holding it up. Sophie grinned. "Let's go back to the tower." The secret room, back at the clock tower. They unlocked the hidden door. It creaked open to reveal a small room filled with shelves, books, and strange inventions. In the center was a metal chest. Max opened the chest carefully. Inside, they found a golden locket and a letter. Sophie read the letter aloud. To the future discoverers, this clock tower is not just a timekeeper, it is a reminder of how precious every moment is. The locket holds a piece of my life's work, a token of gratitude for those who appreciate the wonders of time. Elias Grayson. Inside the locket was a tiny, perfectly working clock, no bigger than a coin, a legacy revealed. Sophie and Max showed the locket and letter to Mr. Barnaby, who was amazed. The town celebrated their discovery, and the locket was placed in the museum for everyone to see. You know, Sophie said to Max later, I think we've solved the clock tower's mystery. Max smiled. Maybe. But I bet there are more secrets waiting to be found. From that day on, Sophie and Max became known as Meadowbrook's young detectives. They continued exploring and uncovering the hidden stories of their town, always chasing the next great adventure. The end. The next story, The Adventure of the Hidden Garden. In the quiet village of Brookfield, a large stone wall stood on the edge of the woods. It was covered in moss and vines, and most people ignored it. But 12-year-old Clara was different. She always wondered what lay behind the wall. Maybe it's just an empty field, her friend Ben said one afternoon as they sat near the wall. Clara shook her head. No, I've seen birds fly over it, and they never come back. I think there's something special inside. Ben laughed. If you're so curious, why don't you climb over? I would, Clara replied, but the wall is too high. We need another way. The key in the woods. The next morning, Clara and Ben decided to search for a way into the mysterious wall. They brought a backpack with a flashlight, rope, and sandwiches. The two friends explored the woods, looking for a gate or an opening. After hours of searching, Ben tripped over something buried in the leaves. Ouch! What was that? He said, rubbing his knee. Clara cleared the leaves and found a rusty old key. It was large and heavy, with an ornate design on the handle. This must be important, Clara said, holding it up. Let's see if it opens anything. The secret gate. Clara and Ben followed the wall until they found a metal gate hidden under thick ivy. The gate was locked, and the keyhole looked like it hadn't been used in years. Do you think the key will fit? Ben asked. Clara inserted the key and turned it slowly. With a loud click, the lock opened. They pushed the gate open and stepped inside. Beyond the wall was a breathtaking garden. Flowers of every color bloomed, and trees with golden fruit swayed gently in the breeze. A clear stream ran through the middle, and butterflies fluttered everywhere. This is amazing, Clara whispered, the mysterious note. As they walked through the garden, they noticed a small stone bench under a tree. On the bench was a piece of paper. Clara picked it up and read aloud, Welcome to the Hidden Garden. This place is for those who seek beauty and peace. Protect it, and it will thrive. Destroy it, and it will vanish forever. Ben frowned. What does that mean? I think it means we have to keep this place a secret, Clara said. If people come here and ruin it, the garden might disappear. Ben nodded. Okay. But how do we protect it? The garden's guardian. As they explored further, they heard a rustling sound behind a bush. Clara froze. What was that? A small creature stepped out. It looked like a fox, but its fur was silver, and its eyes sparkled like stars. Who are you? Ben asked. The creature tilted its head and spoke in a soft voice. I am the guardian of this garden. You have found the key and entered with pure hearts. Will you promise to protect this place? Clara nodded. We promise. But what can we do to help? The guardian smiled. Keep the gate locked and never tell anyone about this place. Visit often to care for the plants and ensure the garden remains peaceful. Caring for the garden. Over the next weeks, Clara and Ben returned to the garden almost every day. They planted new flowers, cleared weeds, and picked up fallen branches. The guardian often joined them, teaching them about the plants and the animals that lived there. One day, the guardian gave them each a small pouch of seeds. "These are special," it said. "Plant them in the garden, and they will grow into something wonderful." Clara planted her seeds near the stream, while Ben planted his near the bench. In a few days, Clara's seeds grew into glowing blue flowers that lit up at night. Ben's seeds grew into a tree with leaves that played soft music when the wind blew. A new beginning. Clara and Ben kept their promise, and the garden flourished. It became their secret haven, a place where they could escape from the outside world. They never told anyone about the gate or the key, knowing the garden's magic depended on their care. As the seasons changed, the garden grew even more beautiful. Clara and Ben often wondered who had created it and why. But for now, they were happy to simply be its protectors, and so, the hidden garden remained a secret, a place of wonder and magic for two friends who dared to unlock its mysteries. The end. The next story, The Lighthouse Mystery. The small coastal town of Seabreeze had a lighthouse that had stood for over 100 years. Its tall, white tower was a beacon for ships during storms, guiding them safely to the harbor. But the lighthouse had been abandoned for decades. People in town said it was haunted. 12-year-old Mia didn't believe in ghosts. She loved mysteries and exploring, and the lighthouse was her favorite place to imagine adventures. Her best friend, Jake, didn't share her enthusiasm. "It's creepy," Jake said one windy afternoon as they stood outside the rusty gate surrounding the lighthouse. "Why do you always want to come here?" "Because there's something strange about it," Mia replied. "I heard that old Mr. Turner, the last lighthouse keeper, disappeared without a trace." "Don't you think that's suspicious?" Jake shivered. "Maybe he just left." Mia grinned. "Or maybe there's a secret inside. Let's find out." The discovery: the gate was locked, but Mia had found a hole in the fence during a previous visit. She and Jake crawled through and walked up the overgrown path to the lighthouse. The door was heavy and creaked loudly as they pushed it open. Inside, the air was cold and smelled like salt and old wood. Dust covered everything: tables, chairs, and an old desk with papers scattered across it. "Look at this," Mia said, picking up a notebook from the desk. The pages were filled with messy handwriting. "What is it?" Jake asked, peeking over her shoulder. "It's Mr. Turner's journal," Mia said. She flipped through the pages and stopped at an entry with large, shaky letters: "They are coming. I must protect the key." Jake frowned. "Who's they? And what key?" Mia shrugged. "Let's keep looking." The hidden room. They climbed the spiral staircase to the top of the lighthouse. The walls were lined with shelves holding old tools and lanterns. At the top, they found the light room, where the giant glass lens sat covered in cobwebs. "This place is amazing," Mia said, peering out the window at the choppy sea. Jake wasn't as impressed. "There's nothing here." "Mia, let's go." But as they turned to leave, Mia noticed a faint outline of a square on the floor. She tapped it with her foot, and it made a hollow sound. "There's something under here," she exclaimed. Together, they pried open the hidden panel. Beneath it was a small metal box. Inside the box, they found an old brass key and another note: "The key opens the door to the truth. Beware of the storm." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "I think we need to find what this key opens," Mia said. The storm arrives. As they left the lighthouse, dark clouds rolled in, and the wind picked up. Rain started to fall in heavy drops. Jake looked worried. "We should go home," he said. "Not yet." Mia replied, holding up the key. "I think it's for the old boathouse, by the docks. Let's check there." Jake groaned, but followed her. They ran through the rain to the boathouse, which had been abandoned as long as the lighthouse. The wooden door was locked, but Mia's key fit perfectly. Inside, the boathouse was dark and damp. Old fishing nets and crates were stacked in the corners. Mia shined her flashlight around and spotted a trapdoor in the floor. "Another hidden door," she said. "Let's open it." Jake hesitated. "What if it's dangerous?" "We'll never know if we don't try," Mia said. The secret below, the trapdoor led to a narrow staircase. At the bottom, they found a small, hidden room. In the center was a wooden chest with strange carvings on it. Mia opened it slowly. Inside the chest were maps, old coins, and a strange device that looked like a compass, but had glowing symbols on its face. "What is this?" Jake asked, picking up the device. Mia examined it closely. "I think it's a kind of navigation tool. Maybe Mr. Turner used it to find something out at sea." The room also contained more notes, which explained that Mr. Turner had discovered a mysterious island that appeared only during storms. He had hidden the compass to keep it out of the wrong hands. A new adventure. As they climbed back to the surface, the storm had grown stronger. Lightning lit up the sky, and the waves crashed against the docks. Mia held the compass tightly. "Do you think we could find the island?" she asked. Jake looked uncertain. "Are you serious? It sounds dangerous." Mia smiled. "But think of the adventure. We could solve the mystery of Mr. Turner." Jake sighed. "All right, but we'll need a boat and a plan." The storm raged on, but Mia and Jake couldn't stop thinking about the strange device and the possibility of finding the island. They knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger mystery, and as they stood together under the lighthouse beam, Mia whispered, "This is going to be the greatest adventure of our lives." The end. The next story, The Treasure of Willow Creek. The town of Pinewood was famous for its old legends. One story, told for generations, was about a hidden treasure buried near Willow Creek. People said that a famous explorer, Captain Marcus Gray, had hidden his fortune there over 100 years ago. But despite many attempts, no one had ever found it. 15-year-old Lily loved the story. She often went to Willow Creek with her younger brother, Sam, to explore the woods and imagine where the treasure might be. "I bet it's under a big tree," Sam said one afternoon as they skipped stones across the creek. "That's where I would hide it." Lily laughed. "Maybe. Or it could be in a cave or under the water. We'll never know unless we look." One day, their grandfather gave them a gift that changed everything. It was an old map with faded markings and a note that said, "To the brave who follow the clues, riches await." The map's clues. The map showed a rough drawing of Willow Creek and the surrounding forest. There were symbols on it, an X, a circle, and a star, along with arrows pointing the way. "Do you think this is real?" Sam asked, staring at the map. "It has to be," Lily said. "Why else would Grandpa keep it hidden?" "Let's follow it and see." The next morning, they packed sandwiches, water, and a small shovel, then set off to find the treasure. Their dog, Max, came along, wagging his tail excitedly. The first clue led them to a large oak tree near the creek. The map showed a star beside the tree, and carved into the bark was the same symbol. "This must be it," Lily said. She looked around and noticed a pile of stones nearby. Underneath, they found a small wooden box with another note inside. "Follow the creek until you see the stones that point to the sun." The stones that point. Lily and Sam walked along the creek, keeping an eye out for anything unusual. After about an hour, Sam stopped. "Look," he said, pointing to a group of tall, flat stones arranged in a circle. Each stone had an arrow carved into it, and all the arrows pointed in one direction. "They're pointing west," Lily said. "Let's follow them." The stones led them deeper into the woods. The trees grew taller and the path became harder to follow, but the map confirmed they were on the right track. Max barked happily, running ahead and sniffing everything. Finally, they came to a clearing where sunlight streamed down onto a patch of wildflowers. In the center of the clearing was an old well covered in moss, the forgotten well. "This has to be the next clue," Lily said, leaning over the edge of the well. Inside, she could see something shiny at the bottom. "How do we get it out?" Sam asked. Lily thought for a moment. "We'll need a bucket and rope. Let's go back to Grandpa's house." They hurried home, grabbed what they needed, and returned to the well. Lily tied the rope to the bucket and lowered it carefully. When she pulled it back up, they found a small metal box inside. The box held a key and another note. This one said, "The treasure lies where the water meets the earth. Use the key to unlock its secret." The final clue, Lily studied the map again. Where the water meets the earth. That must mean the edge of the creek. They followed the map to a spot where the creek bent sharply and the ground was soft and muddy. There, they saw an old wooden door half buried in the ground. "This is it," Lily exclaimed. Using the key, they unlocked the door and pulled it open. Inside was a small chamber dug into the earth. Max barked excitedly as they climbed down and found a chest covered in dirt. Lily and Sam worked together to open the chest. Inside, they found coins, jewelry, and a journal wrapped in cloth. "The Captain's Legacy." The journal belonged to Captain Marcus Gray. It told the story of his adventures, how he had traveled the world and collected treasures from faraway lands. When he decided to settle in Pinewood, he hid his fortune near Willow Creek, hoping it would one day inspire others to explore and dream. "This is amazing," Sam said, holding up a gold coin. Lily smiled. "It's not just treasure. It's history." They brought the chest back to their grandfather, who was thrilled by their discovery. The news spread quickly, and the town celebrated Lily and Sam's find. The treasure was put on display in the local museum, and the journal became a prized piece of Pinewood's history. But for Lily and Sam, the real reward was the adventure they had shared and the memories they had made. And as they looked at the map one last time, they wondered, were there more treasures waiting to be found? The end. The next story, Adventure in the Forest, The Hidden Cave. The summer holidays had just begun, and Emma and her cousin Alex were spending the week at their grandparents' house near Evergreen Forest. The forest was massive, filled with tall trees, winding trails, and mysterious stories. Emma and Alex loved exploring, but their grandparents always warned them not to go too far. "People say there's a hidden cave deep in the forest," Grandpa said one evening, sitting by the fireplace. "But no one knows where it is. Some say it holds a secret treasure, but others believe it's cursed." Emma's eyes lit up with excitement. "We should find it, Alex," she whispered later that night. Alex hesitated. But the idea of an adventure was too tempting to ignore. The next morning, armed with a map, a flashlight, and a bag of snacks, they set out. "Let's follow the river," Alex suggested. "It might lead us somewhere interesting." As they walked deeper into the forest, the air became cooler, and the trees grew denser. Birds chirped above them, and the sound of the river rushing over rocks guided their way. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing to strange symbols carved into the bark of a tree. "Do you think it's a clue?" "Maybe," Alex said, snapping a photo with his phone. They decided to follow the direction the symbols seemed to point, leaving the river behind. After an hour of walking, they stumbled upon an old rope bridge. It swayed in the wind, and below it was a deep ravine. Do you think it's safe? Emma asked nervously. We don't have a choice, Alex said. He stepped onto the bridge, holding onto the ropes tightly. The wood creaked, but it held. Emma followed, her heart pounding with every step. On the other side, the forest seemed different, quieter, almost too quiet. Suddenly, they heard a growl. What was that? Emma whispered, clutching Alex's arm. I don't know, but let's keep moving, Alex said, trying to stay calm. They walked quickly until they reached a clearing where the growling stopped. In the middle of the clearing was an entrance to a cave. Hidden behind a curtain of vines. This must be it, Emma said, pulling the vines aside. The cave was dark and cold, and their footsteps echoed as they walked inside. Emma turned on her flashlight, revealing walls covered in glowing moss. Look over there, Alex said, pointing to a shiny object on the ground. It was a golden coin, old and covered in dirt. Do you think this is part of the treasure? Emma asked, picking it up. Before Alex could answer, they heard a rumbling noise. The ground beneath them began to shake, and stones fell from the ceiling. Run! Alex shouted, pulling Emma back toward the entrance. They barely made it out before part of the cave collapsed. Breathing hard, they sat on the ground, staring at the cloud of dust rising from the cave. That was close, Emma said, clutching the coin tightly. But look, Alex said, pointing to the trees. A path they hadn't noticed before had appeared, lined with glowing moss, like the walls of the cave. Do you think it leads to more treasure? Emma asked. Only one way to find out, Alex said with a grin. They followed the glowing path, which twisted and turned through the forest. Along the way, they found more coins, each one leading them closer to something bigger. Finally, they reached a large oak tree with roots so wide they formed a natural archway. Beneath it was a wooden chest. Emma and Alex looked at each other, their hearts racing. Together, they opened the chest. Inside were piles of gold coins, sparkling jewels, and an old diary. Alex picked up the diary and opened it. The first page read, "To the brave explorers who find this treasure, use it wisely and remember, the greatest treasure is the adventure itself." As they stood there, the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the forest. They decided to take the diary and a few coins as proof of their discovery, leaving the rest untouched. When they returned to their grandparents' house, they couldn't wait to tell them about their incredible adventure. The end. The next story, The Forest of Whispers. It was a foggy morning when Maya and her older brother Ethan set out to explore the mysterious Forest of Whispers. The forest was named for the strange sounds that seemed to come from nowhere, whispers that people in the nearby village couldn't explain. Some said the forest was haunted, while others believed it held ancient secrets. Maya had always been curious about it, but their parents forbade them from going near it. However, after overhearing villagers talk about a hidden tower deep in the forest, Maya convinced Ethan to join her on an adventure. Are you sure about this? Ethan asked as they stood at the forest's edge. The thick fog swirled between the trees, making it hard to see the path. Don't tell me you're scared, Maya teased, though her heart was racing. With backpacks filled with supplies, they stepped into the forest. The air was cool and damp, and the sound of their footsteps seemed louder than usual. Birds chirped above them, but there was also something else, a faint, distant whisper. What was that? Ethan asked, stopping in his tracks. Probably the wind, Maya said, though she wasn't so sure. They followed an old trail marked with faded signs. Along the way, they saw strange things, trees with bark that seemed to twist into faces, mushrooms glowing faintly in the shadows, and streams that shimmered as if made of silver. This place is incredible, Maya said, taking pictures with her phone, but also creepy, Ethan added. After walking for an hour, they came across a stone marker covered in moss. On it was an engraving of an eye and an arrow pointing to the left. Do you think it's a sign for the tower? Maya asked. Let's find out, Ethan said, and they turned left, leaving the main trail. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. The whispers grew louder, and at times, they sounded almost like words. Maya. Ethan, did you hear that? Ethan asked, his voice trembling. It's probably just our imagination, Maya replied, trying to sound brave, but then they heard footsteps, soft, shuffling footsteps, coming from behind them. Let's keep moving, Maya said, quickening her pace. Soon, they reached a clearing where the trees opened up to reveal a crumbling stone tower. Ivy climbed its walls, and the entrance was a dark, gaping hole. This must be it, Maya whispered. Ethan hesitated. Are we really going inside? We didn't come this far to turn back now, Maya said, pulling out her flashlight. Inside, the tower smelled of damp earth and decay. The floor was covered in leaves, and a spiral staircase wound up to the top. They started climbing, their footsteps echoing. Halfway up, they found a wooden chest, covered in dust. Maya opened it carefully, revealing a collection of old maps and a book with a leather cover. What's this? Ethan asked, flipping through the book. It was filled with sketches of the forest, symbols, and notes written in a language they didn't understand. Before they could examine it further, they heard the whispers again, louder this time, and coming from above. Let's keep going, Maya said, though her hands were shaking. At the top of the tower, they found a small room with broken windows that overlooked the forest. In the center of the room was a stone pedestal with a glowing crystal on top. Wow, Maya breathed, reaching for the crystal. Wait, Ethan said. What if it's dangerous? But it was too late. As soon as Maya touched the crystal, the room filled with light. The whispers grew into a chorus of voices, and the walls seemed to shimmer. Suddenly, the light dimmed, and a figure appeared in the corner, a tall, shadowy shape with glowing eyes. Who dares disturb the forest of whispers? The figure said in a deep, echoing voice. We didn't mean to. Maya stammered. We were just curious. The figure stepped closer, and they could see it was cloaked in dark robes. The crystal is a key, it said. It opens the way to secrets long forgotten. But with knowledge comes great danger. What kind of danger? Ethan asked. The figure pointed to the book. The answers lie within. Take the crystal and the book, but beware, the forest will test you. Before they could ask more, the figure vanished, and the whispers faded. Maya and Ethan hurried back down the tower, clutching the crystal and the book. The forest seemed even stranger now, and the path they had followed was gone. Did the forest change? Maya asked, looking around in confusion. Or is it testing us? Ethan said, remembering the figure's warning. Using the maps and notes from the book, they navigated the forest, facing challenges along the way, crossing a river guarded by strange creatures, solving riddles carved into stones, and following trails that disappeared into mist. Finally, after what felt like hours, they emerged from the forest, the crystal glowing faintly in Maya's hand. Back at their grandparents' house, they studied the book, realizing it contained secrets about the forest's history and the crystal's power. But they also knew one thing for sure. The Forest of Whispers wasn't just a place of mystery. It was alive, watching and waiting for its next explorers. The end.